As an outdoorsman and an avid knife collector, I'm always on the lookout for a cool new knife, and I think I've found a winner. I picked up a knife recently that I'm really excited about, and that is the ESEE RB3. I'm really excited about it. I have a lot to say about this knife, so this is probably going to be a bit more of an in-depth knife review, so stay tuned. Let's get into it. So like I said, this is the RB3, the ESEE RB3, also called the Beaulieu. And that is because it is named after its designer, a man named Ruben Beaulieu. I'm not really sure, but I'm pretty sure it's Beaulieu. He is a woodsman and he is an instructor at the Randall Outdoor School, which is synonymous with the ESEE name. He definitely seems to be a pretty experienced woodsman because I think this knife is very well done. I initially picked up this knife because it has the Scandi grind, as you can see, and not very many of ESEE's knives have a Scandi grind, so I was interested to try this out. For me, I think the overall length and size of this knife is about perfect. The blade itself is about 3.5 inches long, so as you can see, it's just a hair bigger than the width of my palm, and then the handle is 4.5 inches, so it fits very well in my hand. It is made out of an 8-inch blank, so the spine is an 8-inch, and the spine is of course sharpened to a 90-degree and rips our ferro rod pretty well. It is made out of 1095 steel, which is ubiquitous for bushcraft knives, so this knife gets very, very sharp, but it does rust a little bit. I haven't had this knife very long, but I have had a little bit of rust, a little bit of patina coming in on the blade. But the non-ground part of the blade has black oxide finish, which helps keep the rust down. I really like 1095 steel. You just have to look after it a little bit more than some of the alternatives. But like I said, it's very sharp. This knife came very sharp. I've never taken it to the stone, but I have stropped it a little bit to get that rust out. Another thing I really like is it has a very subtle drop point throughout most of the blade. And it's very subtle, doesn't drop very much, but that curve extends throughout the whole knife itself. So the whole knife, including the blade, has a nice curvature. And that really helps for your power cuts, your forehand power cuts, and it also helps the blade positioning when you're chest levering. That is a very ergonomic design, that tapered bend throughout the whole length of the knife. Another thing I really like is this first inch of the knife is perfectly straight. You use this first inch of the knife more than anything else, so having it be perfectly straight really adds functionality as well as versatility. And also when this is straight like this, it's much easier to sharpen, and you want to sharpen this first inch because, like I said, that is the area of the knife you use the most, so it's going to need the most attention on this stone. The blade width here itself is very thin, very narrow, especially out here towards the tip. It's pretty thin. That narrowing is very useful when you're turning the knife as you cut, both concave and convex. The narrower the knife, the easier it is to turn as you cut. Moving into the handle, as you can see, the handle is an oval, a symmetrical oval all the way around, so it's very ergonomic. Fits the hand very, very well. I also really like that it has a rounded butt. There's no rear quillion or bird's beak or anything on the back. I like that because I use the chest lever up like this a lot. That is my favorite, and when you have a lot of material sticking out the end, it can get a little bit uncomfortable when you use this grip a lot. One thing that is interesting about this knife is it does have a sharpening choil, and that is a little rounded space here in the Ricasio that allows you to get the full blade onto your stone when you're sharpening it. You don't always see that with bushcraft knives like this because that little point that's right at the edge of the sharpening choil is actually going to be the weakest part of this whole blade. So some bushcraft knives, some heavy use knives leave out the sharpening choil, but this one does in fact have it. But overall, I don't think it's too much of a concern as far as durability, because overall this seems to be a very durable knife. Like I said, the blade is made out of 1095, so it's very sharp. It has some black oxide finish, so it doesn't rust. It's got some nice durable green micarta handles on it, and it comes with a very nice durable sheath. This is the classic ESEE sheath. It is a little bit loose in there, but if you're wearing it on your belt, this knife is definitely not going anywhere. It's going to stay in there nice and snug. There's really only a couple things I don't like about this knife. I'm still unsure about the sharpening choil, just because, like I said, that is a weak point of the blade. That little point that sticks up there is going to be the weak point of the blade, because that little point ends in a 90-degree angle instead of the tip, which ends in a triangle. And basic geometry says a triangle is going to be much more durable than a 90-degree square. So I'm still not totally sure about the choil. Another thing is this curve here is very aggressive. I wish that was a little bit less aggressive, because what happens is when you're using the point of your knife, sometimes this aggressive curve can cause it to slip off of what you're working on. When that's a little bit more spear pointed out, it is a little bit easier to use. And my final complaint is I wish the handle scales were just a little bit thicker to add a little bit more girth to the handle, the overall handle itself. That just causes it to fill your hand a little bit more. You don't have to squeeze down as tight. Your hand is a little bit more open like this when you're using the knife, and that just prevents fatigue. A knife like this is definitely designed for carving and wood cutting, and a bigger, thicker handle like that is just a little bit more ergonomic, and it prevents a little bit more hand fatigue, which is common when you're carving or working with wood. It's kind of like the fat pencils. I don't know if you remember in grade school, they give you those things that make your pencil much thicker. So instead of squeezing like this, you're a little bit more open, and it just prevents hand fatigue. Same principle with a thicker, fatter handle. But overall, I am very satisfied with this knife. It's still pretty clean. I haven't had it for very long, but I've been putting it through its paces, and it has definitely held its own. It was expensive. It retails for $190 on ESEE's website, but I think I picked mine up for about $130 on Amazon. And some people worry about getting ESEE knives on Amazon because they're not sure if it's the genuine article. ESEE themselves claim this is a problem with counterfeit knives being sold on Amazon. This is definitely a real ESEE knife. It came with the warranty card, and ESEE knives are known for their warranty. It is a lifetime, no questions asked warranty. So that really helps me have some peace of mind when I'm beating the crap out of this knife and really putting it through its paces. So yeah, overall, I'm very satisfied with this knife. If you are looking for a Scandi grind from ESEE, I would highly recommend picking this up. It hasn't disappointed me thus far. This will probably actually be my new go-to bushcraft knife, something I'll pack with me and have on my belt most times when I'm out camping in the bush. There you go, guys. I know that was a bit of an in-depth review. I had a lot to say about that knife. It's been a good one. I like nerding out about these knives, axes, pretty much all outdoors gear. So if you want to hear more in-depth reviews like that, or simple how-to videos, please like and subscribe and stay tuned for more. Thanks for joining. See you on another one. Not bad.